start of it in old New York.
So tell me a little bit about your background as far as being a comedian, speaker. You kind of like merged the two worlds
I
together.
did. I did. I started, I've been doing this over 25 years full time, and a couple years before that, uh, when I had my day job I started in Washington, D.C. It's where I grew up in the Virginia, Washington, D.C. area. And, I always wanted to be a comedian, but I remember graduating from college and going to my parents, took us all out for dinner, big celebratory event. And I remember sitting at dinner thinking, now is not the time to tell him I want to be a comedian. so I, yeah, so I went into marketing for about 15 years. I mean, I always wanted to as a growing up kid. I wasn't really the class clown, but I just thought being a comedian would be fun. It sounded like a fun job. And when I remember senior year, there's class superlatives, like best dressed and most athletic, and I'm better than you, and all that. My friend Judy said, well, sometimes you say funny stuff, so I'm going to put you as funniest. So I got 2 votes, me and Judy, and that's about as far as I got. So after college, I graduated and I went on to marketing. I did marketing for about 14, 15 years. Always had kind of the comedy bug. Still wanted to try it. I didn't have anyone in my family that was in entertainment, so I didn't know how to do it, and thought that's for someone else. And finally, after a while, I went up at an open mic and in Washington, D.C. I actually got into the Jay Leno Comedy Challenge. And he was doing this big challenge across the whole country to find a comedian for his show, to come on his show. And so they opened it up to anyone that wanted to get on stage. So I sent in my little information, my little clip. I didn't know I didn't know this was professional comedians. I just thought it was anyone. So I sent in a little mini disc tape. I recorded jokes walking around my living room. I wrote some jokes that day and recorded them walking around my living room and sent it in. And I got on one of the shows in DC and to try out. And I was the only one everybody else sent in videotapes. I sent in an audio tape of just some jokes. I was like, how many people, tried to get in this contest? And the woman was like, oh, we had over 100 people and we only picked like 15. So I got on stage my first kind of real time, kind of freaked out a little bit, but I did well. I came in third, not for the whole contest, but just for the DC area. Did I come in third? Yeah, somewhere. I didn't win, but I came in place somewhere in there. I did well. I got listed in the newspaper with my name and one of my jokes. It was a lot of fun. So I waited another year and finally went on stage at an open mic, and I got hired off of that, and to do some MC work. And so I ended up keeping my day job for a couple of years while I did MC work all around the East Coast. And I finally quit that and went into it full time.
How
That
long?
was my comedy start.
How old are you? You
I'm
got
older
when you
than
got to
you.
the open mic.
How was I? Oh, I was older than most people. Yeah, when I did the open mic, my first shot was I was probably around 30 or so.
Wow.
Um, well, comedy's a young thing. I mean, young job. If you want to stay out late and party and drink free beer,
Right.
it's a great job. But I had already been doing, the work world and everything. So it really helped me. I think my marketing background helped me too, because had better marketing materials than my act when I first started out. So I got a lot of work, and then my act finally caught up. But it was a good, and the good thing about doing the marketing job, because I was running some conventions and stuff. And I remember at one of the big conventions, I was working comedy clubs and stuff, but I remember hiring the Capitol Steps, which is a singing comedy troupe in DC. And they now tour the country. But I hired them for this dinner that my company was doing. And I thought, wow, they're making a lot of money. And, compared to what I'm making in the comedy clubs, there must be a market for corporate comedy. And so I was asking my comedian friends, and they're all like, no, there's just Christmas parties and that sort of thing. And I kept thinking, no, there's got to be a market for it. So when I went into comedy clubs, I always wrote clean material anyway and was always a clean comedian. But I really made sure I was, because I kept thinking about this corporate market. And then I kind of stumbled into it, got in the corporate market. Then got into keynote speaking, and also got into comedy writing along the way. So everything was kind of just kind of haphazard how it happened.
Yeah. So, what's interesting too, it reminds me a little bit. Didn't Rodney Dangerfield have like a whole
Started and
career?
stopped. Yeah, he started and stopped. He got in comedy, from what I understand. Then he got tired, wasn't getting anywhere. He got out of it, went back to, I don't know what he was selling, something door to door, I think, window panes or something. And then he ended up going back into it. So I saw him at the Improv maybe a couple of years before he died. Really fun out here in Melrose, in LA. He came in it was probably midnight, wearing his bathrobe, getting a martini, and he had like some young chick on his
Well,
arm.
exactly how you would imagine him.
It was exactly, and it was so fun. He got a huge standing ovation. He just popped in to do a set, and then he got on stage, and I mean, it was great. I mean, and he could do no wrong. Everyone loved him, and he was up there for about 30 minutes or so. So that was fun.
Wow, that's an experience.
Yeah.
So you got into it. It was always like in your head, pretty much.
Yeah, always kind of wanted to do stand-up comedy, didn't know how to do it, and really just a series of, went to the open mic when I got after the Jay Leno thing, got hired from that, and kind of started
So
working
you got
around.
hired from an open mic?
Yeah, my first big open mic. They hired me to open for Kevin Nealon from Saturday Night Live.
Oh yeah, he's great.
He ended up changing out his week, and I ended up working with the amazing Jonathan, very funny comic magician. He had a show in Vegas for years. Really great guy and really funny. And I had, I've been doing comedy like 6 weeks. I had like 5 minutes of material, and so we get there that
scary.
night. I know I had my first big comedy club night, a big A room in DC called the Comedy Cafe, and my family was in the audience. There was several hundred people. I'd been doing open mics in front of 30 people, so it was a big deal. Well, that night, the club owner comes up to me and 10 minutes before the show, and she goes, "Our feature act isn't here. You have to stretch." I'm thinking, I got 7 minutes of material. So I did. I got on stage. I remember that one of the few times in my comedy career, my knees were shaking. I got on stage and I was so scared, but I just went into my act, and then I started doing audience work, and it was a hot crowd, and I could just goof around with the audience. And I remember thinking, I'm not a comedian, really. I could put this mic down right now and walk off this stage. What are they going to do to me? And I stayed up there. I was up there probably like 20 minutes. And finally, you get the light. They pop a light on over the stage, and you see it and go, oh, okay, the feature was here. So the feature comes up. I couldn't have been, I know I gave him a really crappy introduction, something like, "Here's your feature act." I didn't even know who he was. And I got off stage, and the feature gets on and goes, "Wasn't that a nice intro?" I don't know I was so happy to get off stage. And so he does his 30 minutes. Jonathan goes up, of course, and does great. 5 minutes before the end of Jonathan's act is wrapping up, and he goes, he goes, "I left my last trick in my car. Can we get the MC up here to do another 10 minutes? I stood back there frozen thinking, I got nothing. I got nothing. And the feature act, a great guy named Greg Poole, local guy, tapped me on the shoulder and says, "You want me to do it?" I said, "Please." And he ran up there and I was amazed. He did another 10 solid minutes, and then Jonathan came back and did his thing. So it was a very,
That's exhilarating.
Trial by fire. Yeah. Well, I'm glad didn't put the mic down, but my goodness, that was a scary night. But it was, all worked out well.
I did comedy for 6 months a few years ago.
Oh yeah,
in New York, and there's no feeling like getting like laughs while you're on stage.
That's great. Yeah, we spend our whole time searching to get those laughs again.
Yeah, I've also had some times when, in the very experienced 6 months that I have, of thinking out writing stuff like, this is hilarious, and then putting it out there. It's not so hilarious,
right? And you keep doing it. There are bits that you'll keep bringing out because you're like, this is funny, and one person out of 500 will laugh. You're like, yes, but you realize, okay, I gotta let that bit go. And sometimes it's just a word. If you just tweak a word, I have an opening joke that when I first said it, did nothing. I didn't try it again for like 3 or 4 months. And when I tried it again, it worked because I changed the wording. Sometimes it's just the way you say it, or sometimes it can be the way the crowd is. It's just not a joke that this crowd would get. So there's all sorts of variables go into how it works. It's not just as simple as getting on stage and telling hilarious jokes. A lot of jokes that get a big laugh the night before, the next night, no,
Hmm. And it's an interesting perspective there. So you started out in comedy, you got the job from the big open mic, and then when did the corporate stuff start happening, and what kind of style do you incorporate with that? You said you do mostly
Well,
clean material.
yeah, I
What's it
I don't
done?
have anything against being dirty. When comics ask me, should they be clean or dirty, I said, be yourself. I mean, if that's who you are, but write the joke clean without any cuss words, and you and get a punchline. Don't just cuss to cuss. Um,
Right.
and sometimes you could be graphic. You don't have to be graphic. You can let people get it in their head. They understand what you're talking about. You don't have to be graphic if you're going to do a sex joke. But say it the way you would say it, and if that's how you are, then you're selling yourself on stage. So people. I want to say like Eddie Murphy, very funny, but he cusses. And if he tried not to, because that's him.
Right.
I guess I don't know Eddie Murphy, but be yourself. You got to, but make sure there's a joke in there and it's not just curse words. I kind of always, because of the working in the corporate market, I knew, kind of had in the back of my head, I want to do this corporate stuff. But again, I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have any ideas. And then I started working on the road for a few years, driving 50,000 miles a year based out of Virginia. And then I was working, I remember driving on the New Jersey Turnpike, and I pulled into a rest area, and I called from a payphone. That's how it was back then. And I got this comedy club in Iowa, and I got a hold of the guy, and I said, I'm looking for work. And he said, well, I split with my partner in the club business. He took the club, I took the corporate work. He said, are you clean? I said, yeah. He said, well, do you want to do corporate work? And yeah. And so he brought me to Iowa. He said, send your videotape, VHS. And he brought me to Iowa for probably his name was Keith West, West Entertainment out in Iowa. He probably 3 or 4 times over the year, 3 or 4 years, at Christmas time, he would bring me out, and I'd do like, half a dozen or more Christmas parties back to back to back. And I said, I don't care what I get paid for these parties. What I want is a sentence or paragraph recommendation saying that they love the show. I don't care. That's because I need that for the corporate work. So that's one way I got in. The other way I got into the corporate work, around this, when I started in comedy, I was working, I was trying to get feature work, as MC, feature, headliner. And I was MCing quite a bit, and I went to do an audition at a club in Georgia to be the feature. And I got to the club, and what happens is the MC goes up and warms up the crowd, does 3 or 4 or 5 minutes of jokes, and then brings the person who was doing the guest spot out, and we get a chance to do 5 minutes and show what we've got, and then the feature headliner. So they said, the MC is going to go out and do 5 minutes and bring you out. Well, I'm in the back in the green room, and the other 2 acts are about to fight because they were fighting over jokes, and they're about to start punching each other. And I'm standing by the door. The MC went out and did like 3 car jokes. That was it. And then brought me out to a cold crowd, ordering drinks, the whole 9 yards. I had a terrible show. I got off stage, and the club owner said, I can't move you to feature. Why don't you MC for a week in one of my other clubs, and I'll come out and see you then. I said, okay. So I show up at one of his clubs a couple months later, 3 or 4 months later, to MC for the week. And I got in late. I didn't get a chance to meet the other acts. I barely made it on stage in time. Did my MC thing, got off stage, watched the other acts. The next night, got there early, and I'm talking to one of the acts, and I said, the only reason I'm MCing tonight or this week is because this MC at the other club kind of screwed me over. He went out and did just a couple of jokes and made me go out and warm up the crowd for him. I said he did these 3 stupid car jokes, and as I'm saying it, I realized it's this guy. He's the
my
one. I
God.
said, you're the one that did that to me. Yeah, I had a lot of choice words for him. And I said, you're featuring now because I warmed the crowd up for you. And I lit into him. And he was, to his credit, he picked up the phone right then. He said, I will make it right. He called the Punchline in Atlanta, which he was very affiliated with, and got me an audition right then for that week. He called his friend Frank King, who did corporate work, and said, Frank, you got to help me out. This woman wants to get in the corporate. So he hooked me up with Frank, and Frank and I talked. I said, I'm not ready for corporate yet, but in a couple of years I will connect with you. And we did. And Frank got me into corporate work too. So I had kind of two prongs of getting into it. But yeah, it's a long story, but it was very haphazard,
And do they have anything? Do they tell you to do things in a specific way? Because it seems like it's a lot different. Open mic or comedy shows in general, it's so broad.
What, corporate or
versus going to a corporate gig where it seems like they may have things that are like off limit or.
Well, off limit at corporate, obviously you just can't cuss unless I've had some of them say, hey, let loose, but I don't really have that kind of an act anyway. And my feeling is if I start, letting loose and cussing and doing all that, and if one person gets offended, the agent's going to find out and I'm going to get in trouble. So I don't do that. You have to obviously also watch out in corporate. The heckler might be the CEO. I've been there where the person running it's wasted, and you can't make them look bad. And you can't go at them like you would in a comedy club. You have to be nice about it because they're the one writing the check. In comedy clubs, you could just go after the person and just go, cut them down and use every insult you could do. Yeah, you could, use every insult you can, but you can't in the corporate. But I like them. I mean, I like them because you're not on stage at midnight. I do a lot of breakfast, lunch, and even dinner. I said, get me on stage by 8:30 at the latest because people get tired. They've had a whole day of meetings, and they just want to get a little bit of comedy, go to bed. They don't want an hour and a half of comedy. They need 45, 60 minutes, and then they're good. It's a nice top to the evening. So it's a different, and in the corporate world, the setups aren't as good as comedy club. I would have to say comedy clubs know how to set up a room. They put the chairs and tables together so that laughter, is contagious. They put light, low lighting, all that sort of stuff. Corporate, you're going to be in a banquet hall with high ceilings. The lights may be on. They might have rounds of 10 where people have their back to you. You might be on an IMAG screen where people are staring at the IMAG screen and not you. It's very different, and you have to learn how to work that. I did a corporate event once, a Christmas party years ago, and it was like 600 people, and they said, we want to make sure everybody can see you, so we're going to put you on a pedestal in the middle of the room, and everyone is going to sit around you, and you're going to spin and tell jokes.
What the?
That's the worst idea ever. And it was too late to change it. It was like 30 minutes before the show. So it worked. I mean, I ended up having a lot of fun with it, but it was a stupid idea, right? So
sounds like a great idea. Get dizzy and fall down, and that be the real punchline.
And always have someone. I had someone one time. I had a show because again, the corporates just don't. A lot of them, they don't do comedy shows every week like comedy clubs, so they don't know how to set up a comedian. I had one was a lazy Susan. You'd stand on this, the lazy Susan that kind of spins, and the room was. You'd spin in and out of the room, okay? So, and there were people on one half and people on the other, and you'd spin into one room while you're telling the jokes and spin out into the other. It was awful. It was awful. And thankfully, the agent's husband was the DJ, and he saw this mess. And afterwards, he just said, all right, I'm going to tell her what happened. So thank you, because you can't get anyone's attention that way. So lots of weird setups, and you also you don't have an opening act. Your opening act might be somebody talking about healthcare reform, and then you got to go up there and pick things up immediately and follow that and get people in the mood to laugh. A lot of times they don't tell people that we're going to have a comedian. They just kind of send you out there. So it's a very different animal I've been working corporate for a long time now, so I know how to do it. And then I moved into the keynotes. I do humor keynotes where they want comedy, but they also want a message. So,
Right, I think I saw one of those videos on YouTube that you did,
yeah.
or it wasn't a video; it was audio, and you had a message though. That was about finding your purpose. Why?
Oh, that was my my podcast, Comedian Stories.
Oh, okay. That's
Tales
your
from the
podcast.
Road.
So you have a Comedian Stories is your podcast.
Yeah, Comedian
Okay.
Stories. It's a short 5-minute little thing about stories from the road and what I learned from the particular story. But yeah, I do a keynote called Finding the Funny in Change, How to Use Humor to Handle Change. I do keynote on using humor in your communications because I've written for everybody on the planet. Like, I mean, not everybody, but I've written for a lot of radio, TV, syndicated cartoon strips, greeting cards, guests on the Jerry Springer Show. You name
Wow,
it.
you've written for guests on. You said a lot of
One time,
things. You said
I
a
had
lot of
one.
things, but the Jerry Springer thing like just jumped out.
Yeah, I wrote. There was a guy that was a guest on there. I wrote him some jokes.
So those
it's all
things
made
are
up.
scripted.
This one was. I'm guessing this one was. It was funny too because that same night I had a show for surgeons from Kaiser Permanente, and I'm like, these are two different groups. So.
Okay, you said surgeons.
Surgeons, at Kaiser Permanente.
Okay.
Yeah. So two different writing groups.
Right. Yeah. Of course. So you developed like a motivational message.
Yeah,
to
you
go
say
along with the comedy, and it fits in well with corporate.
Yeah, a lot of groups want comedy, but they really need to have a message. Their group wants a message, so that's been a lot of fun. I think I enjoy that. I have to say the most. I really enjoy. It was very hard at first because I'm used to doing 3 or 4 jokes a minute, just boom, 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 getting laughs all the time, and to stop and really talk, and then go back into comedy, then talk, then go back into comedy. It took a little bit to get that one sorted out, where I could do it.
So let me ask you something. How difficult of a decision was it when you transitioned from being a marketing professional to saying, at 30 years old, which I'm 31, so it's.
I was probably 33 by the time I left. Yeah, I'd been doing comedy a couple of years, so yeah.
Okay. So you're working full. You said you kept your full-time job for a little bit too.
Yeah, about 2 years after I started the stand-up, I kept it was, it wasn't that hard because I was so excited about what I was going to that I wasn't paying attention to what I was leaving. I do remember being at the Fairmont Hotel for work at a convention about 2 weeks before I was going to give my notice. And I knew it was going to be my last nice hotel because comedy clubs you stay in not so nice hotels or comedy condos or someone's, basement or something. So I remember getting a glass of wine and sitting there and thinking it is going to be, I took a nice bubble bath and sat there and thought this is going to be a long time before I get a nice hotel like I'm used to. And so I thought if I don't try comedy full time, I'm going to lose my mind. And so I made peace with it and decided I'm going to do this. I'm going to give up the nice hotels and the nice glasses of wine and the jacuzzis. And I did. And I went into the comedy club full force for years. And then my first big corporate gig was in Las Vegas. And I finally was, moving into the corporate arena after talking with Frank and talking with Keith West and all those people. And I finally got my first gig and it was in Vegas. And a hotel I'd never heard of. I can't think of the name of it. But I thought, oh God, is it, one of these trashy hotels? How bad this is going to be, But I thought, well, I've lived through comedy condos. I can do this. And I got into the Vegas airport and the hotel actually had a check-in counter at the airport where they would then had a shuttle that would take you to the hotel. And I walked up to it and there was a really nicely dressed guy behind the counter. And I said, I'm here to check in. And he said, have you ever been to our hotel? And I said, no, I never heard of it. He goes, well, you're going to like it. It's just like the Fairmont. And I thought, I'm back. I made it back. And it was a nice hotel.
That's kind of symbolic of how far you came where
Yeah,
you know.
it was a nice closure to that.
Right. So so how long have so you're still doing do you work on comedy stuff still, and you
Oh
do
yeah,
corporate stuff, or
yeah, yeah.
what is it like now? Are you 100% corporate gigs, or?
Oh, it's 100. Yeah, I haven't really done comedy clubs in years. I was up until COVID. I was touring with another comedian, Kent Rader, in the Baby Boomer Comedy Show in theaters. So we were doing theaters and appealing, obviously, to the baby boomers, but their families too, and friends and whatnot. And then so that's how I kept my hand in comedy. I haven't really done clubs in many years. And then the corporate work, still doing that. I'm doing a lot of virtual keynotes now, so that's happening.
How's that?
Well, I'm just starting it. It's going fine so far.
You do it like it's like over Zoom?
Yeah, over Zoom, and
I wish I
I've
bought
got.
stock in Zoom before this whole thing started.
I know, I know. This is um, who would have thought this? I mean, literally, my last gig in person was March 7th, so it's been over 5 months since I've been physically on a stage or on an airplane or anything. So, yeah, it's but that's fine. It's all kind of moving
We're
over.
evolving. That's part of,
Yeah,
you know.
who knows? Maybe I'll really like it. I mean, maybe I won't have to travel so much. And I used to joke about, oh, this is a small crowd. We could have had this show in my living room. Guess what? We're having the show in my living room. So,
Did you have early influences in comedy? Because you said you always wanted to do it. Did you ever look up to somebody and say,
I
that
always liked, I like Carol Burnett, even though I'm not much of a storyteller. I just thought her physical humor in her show was really good. I liked the setup punch people like Rodney Dangerfield, Jay Leno. If you don't like that joke, you'll like this one. Set up 3 or 4 jokes a minute. Um, yeah, those are the ones that I really jokes as opposed to kind of stories and
right,
that sort of thing.
like
I
drawn
was
out,
having,
like longer bits?
yeah, I feel like I can't hold attention for a 5 minute bit like Cosby could, or one of those storyteller people. So I just always like doing the jokes, but I'm getting better at doing longer bits because the keynotes kind of help me with that. So I was getting
Okay.
my house refinanced a few years ago, and the guy, I was talking to the appraiser, and he goes, I understand you're a comedian. I said, yeah. He goes, well, my sister-in-law is Carol Burnett. Like
Oh, wow.
only in LA can you run into that, right?
Yeah, that's probably something about the corporate gigs is you probably could make a lot of contacts that could be useful for a
Yeah,
variety of things.
you get a lot of spin-off. You do a corporate gig and people see you in that, and then they book you for their event. So that's great when you're doing them right now. When they all stopped in March, it makes next year tougher because people haven't seen you this year. So it's nice that we're starting to do some virtual stuff.
I do a lot. You said you were doing traveling, but I imagine because you're based out of LA, that those got to be all over the country.
Yeah, I've worked in every state except Alaska. So trying to if anyone has a gig lead on Alaska, let me know. I would love to
Alaska.
get up there. Yeah. But yeah, I've worked everywhere. I probably would cut my travel by 2/3 if I would move back to the East Coast, because I get so many bookings back in the East and the Midwest. Really.
And let me ask too. So you started in DC,
Mhm.
and then when you decided to go all in full time, is that when you moved to LA,
No,
or
I
did
still
you?
worked. I still worked pretty hard on the East Coast. I finally thought I should. I guess I'd been doing it maybe 5 or 7 years. I can't remember the time frame. Um, but I remember I thought, well, I had a friend. Actually, this is what happens when you kind of put it out there in the universe and things happen. I was working at a comedy club in Virginia Beach, Virginia, Thurgood Inn. And after the show, a woman walks up to me. It turns out she's a friend of mine from college I hadn't seen in years, and she lived in LA. And I said, well, I was thinking of moving there. And she said, come out, come out. So 6 months later, I did. I came out and I stayed with her and her husband for a few months to see if I liked LA, because I wasn't sure, if I really want to do it. And so I stayed there, and it just worked out great, and I liked it. And so I went back on the road, and I decided I was going to move, but I wasn't sure when I was going to move or anything. And I'm working the Punchline in Atlanta, and I'm sitting in the Comedy Condo, and I get a call from a club out in Sacramento. And the guy said, hey, he had seen my act or whatever. He said, I want to book you. And I said, sure. We picked a date in September, and I hung up the phone and looked at the other comedian and said, well, I guess that's when I'm moving, because Sacramento's a long way to drive for a gig. So that's how I picked my date to move, and drove across country with all my stuff in my little car.
Wow. And you were in your 30s still at this time.
Yeah. I was getting older, but yeah.
What was your family? Did anybody like try to discourage you from doing it, or
No.
were you going crazy?
No, you know what? I only let my parents see me at the good clubs, like the Improv in DC, which is now my home club because the Comedy Cafe is gone. They'd come out to that. They'd hear me on the radio in DC, and they love that, So they were, at first, my dad was a little like, you shouldn't do this. And when he found out I was leaving my day job, he was like, well, don't quit your day job till you have another one. And I said, well, comedy's going to be my job. And he thought for a minute, and he said, I didn't enjoy my job. You should do what you want to do. And so that was really nice.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, really nice, because he was a corporate guy, and he really didn't enjoy being in the corporate world at all. He wanted to practice law. He had a law degree, but he never practiced it. And he never did that because he was afraid to start his own law firm and his own law practice. So they ended up being really supportive. So it's great.
What would you say to somebody who might be, that's just having trouble identifying with what they want to do? And they're, as far as just whatever, they could, they have a job. It's just that they don't love it. It's just income that pays the bills.
Well,
but they have a passion for something that, might cause them to take some type of leap, similar to the leap you took.
Yeah, I would say try to, certainly there's plenty of opportunity to investigate that while you still have your day job. First of all, make peace with why you've got your day job. I mean, you can't keep going, I hate this. In my day job back in DC, there was a woman who used to complain all the time about the company. And I remember thinking, do something. I mean, not happy, do something, but don't just keep complaining. And it's fine to complain, but you got to be moving forward, or else stop complaining. So start investigating what you want to do and start hanging out in those circles. Once I started doing open mics, I was on stage or in a comedy club hanging out probably 6 to 7 days a week. And that's how you make contacts. Every contact I've made in comedy and moving forward was because I was doing the work. I met Keith by calling to try to get work at the comedy club in Iowa, and I ended up talking to the guy who books corporate work. So every time I kept moving forward and making contacts and hanging out in those circles. And that's what I would say. If you've got a passion for something, find some way to be a part of that community. And you have way more opportunity than there was back in when I started out. We had dial-up AOL. Okay, that was it.
Dial-up AOL.
AOL dial-up. You put it. You're too young to know. You put
I know.
Phone cord in the wall.
Yeah, I had that. The Windows 95.
Yeah.
You can look it up on YouTube. The sound. I looked it up a few months ago, just for nostalgia purposes.
Yeah, but try to be happy with where you are right now, and focus on the things you like about where you're at. And if you like absolutely nothing, then you really need to first find something you can
to do,
right, at least
stop being miserable.
Stop being miserable. Nobody wants to hear it, and so focus on if it's the money or the hours or the people or the whatever it is.
It's very interesting. I had a decent job. I had good salary, good benefits and stuff, but I just hated what I was doing every day.
Yeah.
on the thing, blah blah blah, bada bing. It's just like same shit over and over, whatever.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I quit. I got a job that pays a lot less, but I'm definitely happier.
Yeah. For me, it was, I wanted freedom. I remember, being on the road, sleeping in rest areas and stuff. Not a lot, probably only maybe 30 or so times in my road, but I'd pull over and sleep there and thinking I'd rather be sleeping here in this rest area than going into the office today.
Mm,
I mean, I'd be standing in a national park in Utah going, I can pull over and go spend an hour walking through the park. This is great, instead
yeah,
of,
that's
you
special.
know, yeah. So I just really tried to be happy with where I was and enjoy the moment.
Um, as far as what you're currently working towards, what can we look for to see what you got going on in the future or what have you?
Well, I'm working on my comedy, comedian stories. My podcast comes out every Thursday. I do Alexa flash briefings, which are called Finding the Funny, and that's just like a minute and a half uh, clips of advice. Like I had last week was on how to give a good introduction or bad introduction, or how to avoid a bad introduction. Things like that. I've had a lot of bad introductions. I've been introduced as the work. I go by the work lady. I get the working girl.
What is that? Where did that come from? I want to ask you that. The work lady.
Oh, you know what? Because I used to do. Oh, I still do a lot of work humor, and nobody can spell McInnis. And so I was trying to come up with a website and a name that at least they'd kind of know, because nobody can spell my name right. So since I was doing work humor, a lot of it, and I kind of thought that's where I would be going, doing the corporate and the work humor. I just called myself the work lady. So, yeah.
Okay, so it's like the office humor.
Yeah. Now it should be the work at home lady, I think, because that's where we're going.
Work at home lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of places are going to be, they're using technology that we've had for a while, and they're seeing what their limits of it could be.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of places that have offices are going to have less offices, except for maybe like, they'll downsize or they'll only go in once a week or something. I don't know.
It'll go with trends. I guarantee you it's going to happen like that for a while. And then in 5 years, people are going to be missing the one thing. They're going to miss their coworkers. That's the one thing I really missed when I left my day job. It's coworkers. No one to, come in the morning and grab a Diet Coke with and talk about your weekend, or, talk about your Wednesday night. It was really lonely. Now we have more ways to connect with Facebook and LinkedIn and all that. But still, the physical being there. And I'm hearing from the convention industry already, people are like, we miss our face-to-face meetings. We really want face-to-face, be able to, see people. So hopefully those will bounce back here in the next year.
Yeah, that is something. We're innately social
Yeah.
people are.
Yeah. Working at home is great, but there are people that don't like it. I mean, I've worked at home when I'm not on the road, so it's for 25 years, so it's not been an issue. But I think in a few years, people are going to see the need to get back and gather together again. So,
Yeah, I'm good right now. Keeping it's good to keep certain people away, certain people you might want to see,
yeah,
but
that's
I
for
don't
sure.
know. You'll just see. So I like the socially distance with exceptions. You could come
Yeah,
here, you stay over there.
yeah. Too bad they can't do that.
Yeah, yeah. You got to apply. Yeah, otherwise you're, I don't know.
In trouble.
You're in
Yeah.
trouble with some of these people. Yeah. Um. So yeah. So I think that was a good point. Good. Um. Like you have a good story
Well, thanks.
of somebody that you you did what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Not you didn't walk the path that's already been walked so many times before.
I had the nicest compliment. I'd been out here about a year, and I ran into a guy from a comedian who was in the open mics with me, and his name's Ian Salmon. And he said, I ran into him in front of the Improv, and he said, Jan McInnis, nobody else does what they say they'll do, you did it. You said you're going to quit your job. You said you're going to be in a comedy. You're going to move to LA. You did all of it. You did what you said you would. And I thought that was a really nice compliment. So,
Yeah, that's the blueprint. That's something people fantasize about doing, but not.
Yeah, I think, you know what, I think that holds it back. I mean, I knew people in comedy that swore they were going to quit their job and they didn't. And I think if you're comfortable or you're always looking at what you're going to leave, then you won't do it. You got to look at what you're going towards. You got to enjoy what's going to happen. I was so excited about comedy when I left the last day of my day job. I jumped in my car and ran a stop sign and got a ticket. But I was so excited to be leaving. Of course, I had just given myself a huge pay cut, so that was
like, oh,
there go my.
This isn't starting well.
Yeah. But I was so excited about leaving the job and just being on my own. And I remember my first Monday standing in my condo in Alexandria, Virginia, looking around and thinking, I will give up everything I own to stay in this business. I don't want to go back to that job. And I think I almost did. I had to put everything in storage, move to LA. So, yeah, but I wanted it so bad. You got to really want it, and you got to realize there's going to be bumps and realize there's going to be things that aren't the way you want them to be.
It's not going to be a smooth road. It's going to be bumpy.
Yeah. And some people is. And you know what? The biggest problem is people that get famous fast, get really good press all of a sudden. And they've been doing comedy 6 months and boom, they're on these shows. And that's doing them a disservice because they haven't had to deal with rough crowds. They can't even get into a comedy club on a Friday second show and handle the drunk crowd. I mean, that's I think I heard that Steve Martin, someone asked him, why did you get out of comedy, stand-up comedy? He said Friday second show, because it's a tough crowd. Everyone's drunk and tired, and you're getting on stage at 11 or 12 at night. So if you haven't had those trials and those things, if you make it too fast, you're going to implode. You're not going to be able to stand it. Of course, I would like it to go a little faster for me, but I'll take it slow and enjoy the ride. Enjoy the journey.
Yeah, that's something. Everybody's going to face adversity. It's just a matter of when you're going to face that adversity. It might seem like, oh, that was easy, but no, your adversity is going to come.
Yeah, and you find out how to handle it, and you find out what you should and shouldn't do. I worked a lot of bar gigs and one-nighters, and I realized they were not my crowd. They were not my style. They usually wanted dirtier material.
Nice.
And so I moved away from those. I did them for the money. I did as best job as I could, and then I just kind of moved away and didn't do them anymore. So.
Yeah, if you're clean cut, I imagine people at bars at night want to hear more raunchy.
Sometimes back then, I think
I don't know.
Yeah, it just depends. I think one of the big problems was a lot of times they were on Monday nights. The bar owner wouldn't advertise it, so people that show up to the bar to watch, Monday Night Football, I have literally been standing there when they turn the game off and send the comics up. It's like, really?
Oh God, that's
Jay Leno can't compete with this crap. So, yeah.
Let me ask. I saw something on your website. It said something about flourishing
from failure. Yeah,
one
of my keynotes. Yeah, flourishing from failure, handling mistakes like a comedian. Because I talk about how to get through stuff. Because we have to get our head together. We might have a bad show, and we got another one coming up in 30 minutes. How do you do that? So I give it a few tips and tricks for people.
Is there anything you could share?
Oh, alcohol? No.
Alcohol, yes.
You got to find a way to change your focus. You got to find a way to change your focus, and kind of partition your brain. Comedians can be superstitious. I know comedians who have changed their shirts in between shows. I did that once because I had a really crappy show in Ohio, and I had another one coming up that half hour later. And I ran to the hotel and changed my shirt. It turns out it wasn't the shirt's fault. I had another bad show. So you just it's a keynote. I think I give some tips in that video. People can go watch that. I can't remember what I say.
At theworklady.com.
Theworklady.com, yeah.
Okay.
Because nobody can spell McInnis. You can go to janmcinnis.com. You'll get there, but
Oh, you got to just redirect it. I don't think it's that hard to spell. Then McInnis.
People put a G in it though. It's a MCI. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. All right. So, have you had anything like major show, like corporate shows? Is there like a big themes that you focus on that you really harness in on, or any type of programs that you?
I do a lot of events for healthcare, education, financial.
How would you differentiate doing or preparing for a gig for a healthcare industry versus like I don't know, some in the financial field?
Well, I always have a client call about a month out, and I talk to them about their group, and I find out, so I can kick off with a few jokes and a few things on what their on their industry, and then in my keynote, I address a couple of the things that they're dealing with, so that I kind of know the group, and which I think is fun because most people spend their whole life in one, maybe two industries, and I get to learn about everything, from mushroom growers to the Federal Reserve banks. So
That requires a lot of versatility.
Yeah.
What's the Federal Reserve banks? What do you mean? You talk to like the New York State Federal Reserve banks?
Oh yeah, I've done my keynote for 4 of them. And my first one, I was going on stage right before I went on stage. The client pulled me over and goes, "These are bank examiners. They never laugh." And I went out. And it was great. I was doing my keynote, Finding the Funny in Change, just great. And I booked several more off of that one event. So people are people,
Well, Federal Reserve people, and I don't know if they're exactly people.
They are. They're all nice. And
you didn't see them shapeshift at all?
Do what?
You didn't see them shapeshift like they weren't reptilians or anything? They were
no.
Okay.
Shapeshift. No.
Okay.
They were great people.
Oh yeah, we don't talk about the Fed anymore. I'm just you were saying something else that where I slowly sidetracked you. Because you said because you got a lot of people stay in one or two industries.
Oh yeah, and I get to see dozens and dozens of different industries, and learn. And I learn about them. I go to their websites and I find out what these people deal with and their industry jargon and stuff like that. It's really interesting.
Okay, great. So I think it's got a beeping in my. Hold on one second. Something was open in a different app and it was making noise in my headphones. Are you on Instagram, social media? If people want to stay in touch with you, follow up with you, how would they do that?
Yes, Instagram, Facebook. I have a janfans with a s.com. This is my Facebook fan page. I got the LinkedIn. Go find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter.
Are you at the Work Lady on Twitter and Instagram?
No, I'm on Jan McInnis.
Jan McInnis. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no.
All right, yeah, that's great. We're getting close to an hour here. I think
Great.
You got a good message that we were hopefully able to get out to a lot of people.
Yeah, enjoy your journey. That's my message. 3 words. Enjoy your journey. We're all on a different journey. Have fun with it.
We're all on a different journey. Sometimes our journeys overlap. Excuse me. And I'm glad that our journeys overlapped here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on your show.
No, thanks for coming on. I really I learned a lot. I know I have some personal takeaways I'll get out of this for sure. Just incidentally. So, I appreciate somebody who's done what you've done. And,
yeah.
I hope people will be able to apply it hopefully in the way that I apply it.
Perfect. Thanks. Well, thanks a lot. Take care and stay in touch for sure.
Absolutely.
Brand new start of it in old New York.